Today I had the privilege of getting to hear Christina Peoples speak about aging. It's of course something that we're all doing every single day, but especially in the context of how we talk and work with our parents as they're aging. You're a gerontologist. Let's talk first a little bit about how do we better understand kind of what our parents are going through as they're aging, whether it's physically, emotionally, and just the frustration that they may be having. So, we always say that you can't, until you walk a mile in somebody else's shoes, you can't really understand exactly, but give us a sense of maybe the things that we should be considering and thinking about as our parents are getting older.
Well, one of the number one things that we should think about is just understanding that this is a person, right, who has lived a life of making choices, lived a life of different challenges, gone through multiple different types of things, and keeping in mind that when certain changes come up, that they may not be able to live the life they once did, just being empathetic and knowing that that is a loss. That's considered a loss. And so when we approach it as someone who has lost, when you lose a loved one as an example, right? You're so empathetic to that person. You're so loving and caring. It's the same thing for our parents or any other older adult that we might be caring for. Just remembering that they have lost something that they, once had for a long length of time. The identity that they once had, they may no longer have, and just really being mindful and aware of that.
When we think of, because they're having that, especially that emotion, right, that they may be grieving a little bit of the loss, I would imagine too that they're also frustrated, potentially that they can't do some of the physical things that they used to, or that they have a medical issue. So really just having to think through that and trying to kind of put yourself in their shoes a little bit.
Yes, we have to take a step back a lot when it comes to that. When it comes to, caring for our parents, our loved ones, we really have to take a step back. And like you said, put yourself in that person's shoes. But not even just putting yourself in that person's shoes, just remembering, we are all humans and we all experience difficult situations. And just remembering that. So when we have those frustrating moments, because they do come, and sometimes we don't always have a chance to take a step back, but when we do, just take a step back and be like, you know what, this is a human being first. And this human being is experiencing certain challenges that I'm not going through. So I may not be able to put myself in their shoes, right? Because I can't fully feel and grasp what they're dealing with. But what I can do is just try my best to be as supportive as possible. Try my best to be as understanding as possible. Is that going to be hard? Yes. Because sometimes you're just like, well, I just don't understand why they can't see it the way I'm telling them they should see it. But we can't always see someone else's perspective. We can only see ours a lot of times. And so you have to approach it in another way. If you're, constantly saying, this is how you need to do it, or you really need to be thinking about this, try another approach, maybe modeling instead of saying it, just model certain things to give a visual. And sometimes that can even be helpful because we get tired of hearing this all day. Modeling it, or even just, thinking of other people who may have had similar experiences that could share their stories, and getting that insight as well can be helpful.
So what would be an example of modeling?
That's a good one. Let's think about drinking water.
Okay, staying hydrated. Okay,
Yes.
Which is super important.
My grandmother, she passed away in 2019. She had dementia. It was very challenging getting her to drink water, right? It just wasn't anything she thought about, but we knew that this was something she needed in her body.
Right.
And so a lot of times you could go in the kitchen. We could tell her all day, you need to be drinking water, you need to be drinking water. It's like, no. If I go in the kitchen and I get me some water and she's in the kitchen, I get my water and I start drinking it and just slowly like, here, you want some? She would take it and drink it, right? So it's things like that. That is like an example of modeling, because it's like, now I see you drinking this water and all of a sudden I think I'm okay with getting the water and drinking it,
gotcha.
right? Other things could be...
What about even like hard conversations? You know, if we need to start talking about, well, we don't, you know, have we taken care of all the legal documents and things like that? Can you sort of use modeling in that way too, where it's like, hey, mom and dad, I've been working on my legal documents for my children, and I just realized, don't know if you've done it yet. Have we thought about that? Would that be a good example? Okay.
That is a great example. Okay. Perfect. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Putting ourselves in the situation as I'm doing this too. So then it's not like
I'm not talking at you. I'm talking with you.
I'm doing this too. Let's do this together.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you handle it though when you get really frustrated because you see them making what you consider to be poor decisions?
So I used to be a long-term care ombudsman. That's like an advocate for people who live in nursing homes or assisted living homes. And the residents there who were older made choices that in my mind were not good choices. But we all have the right to make choices that aren't good. So in our youth, we made choices that weren't good. When we were teenagers, we made choices that weren't good. In our 20s, our 30s, our 40s, we're always making some type of choice that may not be the best, but it's what we want. And we have to keep that in mind when it comes to our parents. It's a situation where they also have that choice. There is a line, you know, with safety and things like that, where we will need to potentially jump in, because now it could be a safety concern or a hazard or dangerous or what have you. But all in all, there are going to be times where you really just have to roll with them making a choice that's not going to be the best.
And do you think some of that too, there's almost that line too, where there's a difference between somebody who has been diagnosed with dementia and or just somebody who's making decisions that you just think are kind of crazy?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As far as like whether the safety or you know, if mom has dementia and says, oh yeah, I'm going to pull out all my money and give it to a stranger, then obviously that might be a place you step
That
in.
is where you have to draw the line and be like, okay, now we need to take certain measures to make sure that her money is protected, that she is safe, that nobody is coming in to take advantage of her because they know all of these things about her now, right? Like, there is a line that we have to draw. But even with dementia, especially when it's in the early stages, I feel like a lot of times people immediately still try to take the choices away from that individual. And it's important to know that even though this person has this disease, it doesn't mean that they cannot still make choices. My grandmother was in an advanced stage of dementia, but we still gave her choices. And were the choices always the best? No. But it's the fact that we put it out there. And did we let her make the choice that wasn't the best? No. But we put it out there to say, this is a choice that you can make. Do you want to take your shower today, as an example, right? You want to take your shower today. You want to hold off. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to hold off on my shower. And it's like, well, it's already been a couple of days now. We got to give her a shower, right? But we did put it out there for her to make a choice. And then we had to kind of come back in and be like, well, you know, yesterday you skipped it. It might be best. I think you'll feel great if we go ahead and clean you, and you'll feel so much better. And having that conversation as to why the choice that she made may not work, but still just putting it out there because she's a person and she should still be able to make her choices, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, you said something in your presentation today, and I'm going to look at it again. You said something about talking about aging for ourselves, but you know, giving myself the permission to age the way that I want. Do you feel like we need to give our parents permission to age the way they want?
Yeah, and the way that we do that is just letting them be. Let our parents be who they're gonna be. So not necessarily saying out loud, okay, mom, I'm gonna give you permission to age. No, but just letting mom be who mom is gonna be. Letting dad be who dad is gonna be. Let them be, right? All while making sure they are safe, they are cared for, and all of those things, but just giving yourself permission to let your parents be who they're gonna be. And that is difficult. It's hard, you know, even seeing that they're not who they once were to you.
Sure.
But you also have to think of the impact that it has on you when you don't allow them to be who they are. It causes more stress, more frustration, more anxiety, all of the things. And so really thinking about yourself and what could help you in all of this is important. So it's more so giving yourself permission.
Okay. And then knowing when is it that I need to step in.
Yeah.
And we're trying to figure out where that line is.
Yeah, once things start looking a little as if a little out of control, right? Where it's like, okay, you know, she's talked to scammer after scammer on the phone and didn't realize it. So this is happening more times than not. Or okay, she's gotten into several different accidents. Or okay, dad has done this many number of purchases within a week. Like
Or
things
has
like
fallen
that.
this many
Right,
times, or- okay.
right. So when the things start racking up, you know, I feel like it's something in our gut. A lot of times that tell us that. And also, we were talking about this in the session, like with checking our intentions. And so knowing when it's just fear and when it's truly like the reality of things.
The fear, our fear.
Yeah, like knowing when it's fear of, you're just fearful that things are going to get worse. And so you're stepping in more than what's needed because of that fear. Like the fear is kind of like fueling everything versus, no, this is just the reality. And this is necessary because the reality is this, and that.
So just a scenario to maybe kind of talk through, you know, we see people in our community very often that will say, mom and dad are living at home, mom really needs more care, dad refuses to either bring in care to the home to be able to help mom, they don't want to move to a community, you know, they're just digging their heels in and saying, everything is fine, we got it under control, yet you go as the kid, the adult child to the house and you realize the house is a mess, it's not, you know, it's not clean, they're hoarding, mom is falling, she's not getting the care she needs, you know, how do you handle those situations when you feel like, okay, Dad, I don't think you're not looking at this rationally, and we've given you, you know, latitude to make these decisions to stay there, but now something's got to give. You either need to allow somebody to come in, or you're gonna need to move.
Yeah, that's when you got to draw the line.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's really hard.
It is very hard. It's very difficult.
So kind of let them be. From your experience, let them be until you just feel like they just can't anymore?
Yeah, because the experience that you just described, there were a lot of different hazards mentioned, right? And safety is always going to be number one. Making sure that your loved one is safe and getting the care that is needed. And so when it starts showing up more times than not that they're not safe, the frequent falls, the clutter that more than likely is the cause of those falls, the not really, you know, being appropriately cared for or doing the things that are necessary to, you know, help them. Yeah, it is very difficult to be involved, but it is necessary. I know my grandmother kept falling and forgetting to take her medication. So it started off as baby steps. Somebody would call at particular times of the day to make sure she took her medicine. Then it started as like someone was coming over to make sure she was taking her medicine. Like there was like a progress, but sometimes that's not always the case, right? Sometimes it just,
Right.
you go
The
from
wheels
0
fall
to
off.
100, right?
Yeah.
So it's really one of those things where you think about the safety. Is my dad safe? Is my mom safe? And based off of like this scenario that you gave, they're not. And so it is one of those things where it's like, as hard as this is going to be, it's gonna be hard because it sounds like dad isn't even really trying to deal with it. And so as hard as it's going to be, because these are people that you love, you jump in.
Well, and there's that whole role reversal, which is really tricky. But and are there some situations where just because to save your own sanity, if you will, where your parent is digging in and just not cooperating, that sometimes you do have to take that step back, even? Because I think that's also hard where, if I don't have the legal authority to be able to say, no, Dad, y'all are leaving, or we're doing something different, if they're still, kind of have the cognitive authority to be able to make those decisions, sometimes you just have to, as the adult child, just kind of say, okay, I don't know what else to do. I guess I've got to take a step back, and I don't like the way the situation is, but I can't really change it.
Yes.
And
that is heartbreaking, but also something that I know a lot of people have had to do with their parents is really take a step back and just say, I have to let go, right? And you also got to think about your mental health and how it's affecting you. And like you said, if you can't intervene because of the legal parts and they really are like insistent on not doing anything, you have to love them where they are. Yeah. And I hate that. I mean, but I'm used to the lifestyle that I'm living. So if it ever came to where I couldn't live that lifestyle, it would be hard for me to let that go. And that's the situation for a lot of people. It's hard to let go of a lifestyle, even if it's chaotic, even if it's just like a lot of barriers within it, because it's the lifestyle that has been lived for so long. It's hard to let go. So yeah, just loving them where they are and really being like, I gotta take my hands off of this. Still checking in if you want, but even if it's hard to do that, you just gotta trust, you can have the wellness checks and things like that, but yeah,
just knowing kind of what are your limitations and what will they allow you, what will they allow you to participate in. Well, any final thoughts of just thinking of adult children who are caring for their aging parents and helping them? Any other words of wisdom that we need to be thinking through as we go along this journey?
I'll share what I did earlier, which is the whole acceptance and grieving and embracing. Although it can be more challenging because of the situation, especially with our parents, but doing it more so for ourselves, accepting where things are, how things have changed, grieving where they are no longer, right? And then embracing the moving forward, or taking your hands off, or navigating through how to, transition from a home to somewhere else or what have you, but embracing it and knowing that it's not just you dealing with this, like everyone everywhere is dealing with something that is just as difficult as this, and you're not alone in it. You really can only take it one day at a time. And sometimes we forget that. We're constantly thinking ahead to next week, next month. But sometimes it's important to remind ourselves that we need to just take things one day at a time.
So the acceptance, the
grieving,
and the grieving, that it is sad to watch and hard sometimes to see them not be able to do the things that they used to do, or be able to make those decisions. So the acceptance, the grieving, and the embracing. All right. Yeah. Well, thanks so much. You are such a wealth of knowledge and help to our community. So thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.